Good afternoon. In honor of Shabbos, again, I want to share with you a Dvar Torah. So if you were counting how many Parshiot there was until this week we start Parshat Behar, which is number 32. Now, 32, every number has a letter in Hebrew. 32 spells the word lev, which means heart. Well, we do find a lot of heart in this week's Parsha. It talks about economic help for those in need. It speaks about the sabbatical year, the Jubilee year, forgiving of debts, taking care of people around you, chesed, gemilas chasadim, and not to charge interest. All that is in this week's Parsha. And, not by coincidence, there's something else we study this week, which is Pirkei Avot. Since the holiday of Pesach, we've been studying Pirkei Avot every week, another chapter, and this week's chapter talks about how our attitude should be with other people and how we give. So both have the same theme, and this Mishnah, Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers, says as follows, that there's four types of people. There's the one who says, well, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine. There's the one who says, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. There's the one who says, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. And there's the one who says, what's yours is yours, and what's mine is also yours. So when you think about these four types of people, you realize that one is a capitalist and one is a socialist. The capitalist is the one, and the Mishnah gives its interpretation about the capitalist, that this is the regular way. The one that says what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. The socialist is the one who says what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine, and the Mishnah tells us this is Am Haaretz. This is someone who is not knowledgeable. Then there is the Rasha, the wicked one. He says what's yours is mine and what's mine is mine. Everything belongs to him. And the Chassid, of course, the devout one, is the one who says what's yours is yours and what's mine is also yours. Okay, which begs many questions. The first and most obvious question is, we're talking about wicked people here in Pirkei Avot. Now, if you study the beginning of Ethics of Our Fathers in the introduction of the Rambam, he says that Ethics of Our Fathers is to teach us Milsa de Chasidusa, which means how to go beyond the letter of the law. Once you do everything, how could you become a better person? Why are we talking about the wicked one? Like the tyrants, the despots, who thinks that their entire country's wealth and human and natural resources really belong to them, and they siphon off all the money to some distant bank account somewhere. That's what this Mishnah of Pirkei Avot is teaching us over here. How does that come into Pirkei Avot at all about this type of wicked person? Now, not to get in trouble with any modern day despots, let's talk about some in the distant past. We had Achav, that the Navi tells us. Achav was very wealthy. He had he was wicked. He had an estate, and he had a neighbor, and he wanted to extend his estate. Navos was his neighbor, and he wanted to incorporate Navos's vineyard into his estate. Navos said, "Listen, this is my ancestral plot. I don't want to sell it to you." And Achav set him up with two false witnesses as if he was rebellious and had him killed. And then what does Achav do? He takes his estate and incorporates into his own estate. Eliyahu Navi warns Achav, Ratzachta, you have murdered, v'gam yirashta, and you also want to inherit. Instead of the dogs licking up the blood of Navos, the dogs will lick up your blood. And that's what happened. Achav died in battle. Another story, which is in the Medrash, about Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, in his many conquests and journeys, gets to some distant land called Katsya. And he's observing the court of the king of Katsya. And in walks two people, and they have a dispute, an argument, and the king of Katsya says, yes, please, let me hear what you have to say. The first one says, I bought a chorba, a destroyed building from my friend, and I found a treasure buried inside destroyed building, and I want to return it to him, and he refuses to take it. And the other person, his friend, says, listen, I sold him the building with all its contents, it belongs to you. The king of Katsia says, well, you have a son, you have a daughter, let them get married, and together they will divide the wealth. Alexander the Great says, wow, that's amazing. We don't do it that way by us. The king of Katsia says, what do you do? He says, I would have cut off both of their heads and taken the wealth for myself. The king of Katsia says, that's impossible, that's injustice. I mean, if it rains in the land where you are, I don't understand why you deserve of it. Maybe the cattle and the sheep deserve the rain. Maybe that's why you get rain. So, is our Mishnah speaking about such evil and cunning type of people? Well, the answer is no. If you look a little closer at our Mishnah, it doesn't say the person actually does it. It says ha'omer, the one who says it. The one who says it is considered like a rasha. In other words, the one who says, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine, he just says it. In other words, this is a guy who gives all the appropriate tzedakah, all his tithes. He gives what he's supposed to give. But in his mind, he says, oi, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to take from what's mine and give to that person? And really that belongs to me, what that person has. Well, when a person thinks like that, he's making a big mistake. Because the truth is, even if you have something and you have some wealth that you're able to share with someone else, it's because Hashem gave you something extra to share with someone else. Now, let me tell you a classic story about the fellow who owns a clothing store on Dizengoff Street in the middle of Tel Aviv, and he's always very scrupulous about giving his tithe, his 10% to tzedakah, and he expands, he takes over the next store and the next store and he's always making sure he gives the right amount to tzedakah, 10%, and he becomes a big tycoon until he's into the 6 and 7 digits, and he's always giving this number to tzedakah until he gets a little lackadaisical and falls behind in his tzedakah giving. And same too, as much as he accelerated in his business, it goes now in reverse. He realizes something's gone wrong, and he goes to the rabbi, and the rabbi says, listen, God used you as a distributor for tzedakah. He saw you were getting a little lackadaisical, so he found a different distributor. Now, of course, that's just a classic story. I want to tell you a story about a rabbi. His name is Binyamin Karniel. He's the Chabad Shliach in Gadara in Israel. Something interesting happened to him. In walks his base Chabad, his Chabad house, a Jew by the name of David Maimon. David Maimon comes close to him and explains to him that he has a problem. Him and his wife don't have children yet, and he's 42 years old, and it's really bothering him. The rabbi tells him, listen, I have advice for you. It's not my advice, it's the advice of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Whenever such situations happen, the Rebbe advised that they should study the laws of Tyrants HaMishpacha, family purity, be very scrupulous in it, and in that merit, they will have children. As soon as David starts studying these laws, he realizes it's very strict and very restrictive. He says it's not for him. And as much as the rabbi encourages him, he stands back. One day, they have a Fabrengen. There's a celebration, and the rabbi says L'chaim, and another L'chaim, and David is there. And after several L'chaims, the rabbi says, David, I know exactly what you need. David, I know exactly what you need to do to get there, but you don't want to do it. You don't want to take on the commitment. Well, David, listen to me. I have something special in my home which I've never shared with anyone. It is a special treasure. I have dollars from the Rebbe that I received from his hand. I will make with you a deal. Take upon yourself the laws of family purity, and I will give you one of my dollars from the Rebbe. They shake hands. The next morning, David is there. He wants to study the laws, the refresher on the laws of family purity. And he studies it. And him and his wife take on take on this mitzvah, family purity. And sure enough, his wife becomes pregnant. And she gives birth. But there's one thing missing in the story. The rabbi, Rabbi Binyamin, never gave David his dollar from the Rebbe he had promised him. And he always tried to slip out why he could or I can't. Oh, I said too much l'chaim. He couldn't separate himself from this precious dollar he received from the rabbi. One day, David tells the rabbi, enough of your excuses. If I don't get this dollar by tomorrow night, I'm going to make a sit-down strike in front of your house. That day, the rabbi comes home and he gets a message from his kids. Your mother in Kfar Chabad called. He calls her back and she says, Mother, how are you? How are things going? And she says, I want you to know that I have $1 from the Rebbe for you. I mean, this is a story 5 years ago. Obviously, the Rebbe didn't just recently give $1 to her. She said, I found $1. It said, Avur Binyamin, for Binyamin. It said this on the dollar. I was cleaning out my drawers. And the story is that 30 years ago, your father and I had gone to the Rebbe. You stayed behind in Kfar Chabad, and the Rebbe gave us an extra $1 to give to you. He didn't need any more messaging. He understood right away that what was meant for someone is what belongs to him. Now, going back to that Mishnah, you would think someone who says, what's mine is yours and what's yours is very devout. He's a chassid. But that also begs an explanation. How do we understand that? Someone gives even the shirt off his back. That's the expression. But the Rambam says someone who gives the shirt off his back, gives everything he has, is a foolish person. Because then they themselves will need to depend on others. The Rambam says someone who gives beyond his means is someone who's not being accountable. He's not taking care of his own family. So how could someone say, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is yours? How is that such a person called a chassid? The explanation is like this. A chassid is ha'oimer, the one who says it. Not that he actually does it. He gives that person the feeling that everything I have is just for you. Obviously, there's no way he could give every penny he has to the poor person. But ha'oimer, he gives him that feeling. It's like it says in the Talmud, someone who gives a penny to a poor person, misparech, he gets the blessing, 6 blessings. Hamafaisoy, someone who says a nice word and makes the poor person feel good, misparech, gets a blessing, 11 blessings. What's the meaning of all this? That ha'oimer, someone who speaks to the poor person and makes them feel good about themselves, that's also very important. Give them the feeling that everything we have is just to help you and to serve you. I want to finish off with a story with the Rebbe Vizhnitz, Rabbi Yisrael Hager. One of his Hasidim was about to marry off a child, and he came to him for a bracha, and he gave him the blessing, and this fellow was a widower. He had lost his wife. He tells this widower, he says, after the wedding, no matter what time it is, I want you to give me a phone call. And he tells his misharis, his attendant, you make sure I get that phone call, it doesn't matter what time it is. Sure enough, late at night, after the wedding, the phone rings, the attendant gives the phone to the rabbi speaks to him, and what is it? The rabbi says, no, how was the wedding? Tell me, how did the band play? And the food, was it good? Were the mechutanim happy? How did your children take it? Did you have a lot of guests? And how was the dancing? And when he finishes all this small talk, he wishes him well and good night. And when all that is over, the attendant asks the Rebbe, I mean, for your own children's wedding, you don't concern yourself with all these little small details. Why are you so interested in the details here? Ah, says the Rebbe, you know, this fellow is an alman. This fellow's a widower, he doesn't have a wife. What happens after a simcha? The couple goes home, and they review everything that happened, and they talk to each other about how this one liked it, how the food was, and they sit down over a cup of tea, and they review everything. This fellow came home to an empty house. I needed to give him that good feeling. The one who speaks nicely to the one in need gets the blessing of 11 blessings. I want to remind everyone that this coming week we're preparing for the holiday of Shavuos, and the Rambam tells us all the laws of how to really celebrate a holiday. You have to have fine wine and good delicacies and good meat and everything we're supposed to have. And the Rambam finishes off by saying, someone who does all of this but does not have at their table orphans and widows and poor people, he's not doing the simcha, the festivities of the holiday. Instead, he's doing the simcha of his stomach. Of course, we in our community are always very careful not to have the simcha of our stomach, the happiness of our stomach, but the happiness of the holiday, and we share with others, especially nowadays that we can't have people literally at our table. We send food packages to the needy. We've been doing for 2 years, Chasdei Yudah, to over 100 families, sending them beautiful provisions for the holidays so they can have some extra simcha, happiness for the holiday. I feel fortunate that we live in such a generous community, and I appeal to you, if you haven't done yet, to please partake in this mitzvah. It's never too late. And in the merit of all these mitzvahs of making other people happy and taking care of others, Hashem will make sure to make us happy with good health, nachas from our children, and much prosperity. Amen, and have a wonderful Shabbat.